SonarQube face, right? Because we had an issue with a script that we were using, but fortunately, I was able to resolve that, and then SonarQube server is up. And this was the script that I used. All right. If you go into my repo, you should find these SonarQube setup updated. Right? You should find it in my repository, so you can use that. Right. So this is the code that I used. All right. I was able to update it, and then you have this. So this is the one we're trying to use, right? Earlier. Now this is the new one. So just go to the repo, and you find the SonarQube setup updated.sh. All right. You can make use of that. Is that okay? Okay. All right. So the SonarQube server is up. If you click on login, actually the username is just admin. That's the default username. Because you can change that for the purpose of our class. All right, we'll just leave it as is. So this is the SonarQube dashboard. This is how it looks. And interestingly, we don't have to do anything here really, right? Whatever it is we want to do has to come from the Jenkins server. All right, and we have to ensure that Jenkins can actually interact with our SonarQube system. And if I remember correctly, in the last class, I think we installed a few SonarQube plugins, and I told us that we're going to work with those plugins, all right, so that SonarQube can interact or Jenkins can interact with the SonarQube, all right, server. Okay, so now let's take it one step at a time. Here is our repository that we are working with. All right, we already provided a few explanations last class, so I'm not going to do some explanations, okay, because we dealt with that in the last class. For example, the issue of webhook, you already know what that is, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that. So we need to change this IP address because the IP address of our Jenkins server has changed. I need to go here and grab the new IP. Okay, grab the new IP, come to your webhook, right? So it will ask you to authenticate depending on your Github setting. Mine is connected to my mobile, so I have to every time um, authenticate from my mobile. So just have to do that very quickly. Okay, and all right. So here I just have to copy this path, paste that. Okay, that's all we have to do. Then update the webhook, right? So you can actually test it if it's working. So go to recent deliveries. We don't have any deliveries yet, so we may not be able to test the webhook. So it's going to be great, right? Until you have the pipeline triggered, all right? Then I would um, green. Okay, so now we don't have any trigger yet, so we can leave it as is. Okay, so that's what we have to do at this point. Now, the next thing we have to do, of course, in the last class, I talked to us already about the SonarQube. All right, we installed a few plugins, all right, and for Maven and all of that, we installed a few plugins and all of that. So now is the time to configure, all right, these plugins. Okay, we need to configure the SonarQube plugin, right? So let's go to Jenkins, manage Jenkins, right? Jenkins. All right, I don't know why the server is slowing down again today. And let's just take the have. All right, so
So,
okay, all right, so here Under Manage Jenkins, please scroll down and then you will see Global Tool Configuration. All right, let's see tools, right? So here you have your tools, like configuration. So scroll down here under tools. God. All right, so under tools, you have to scroll down, all right, and find your. We installed JDK already in the last class, right? Have that configured already. Okay, scroll down. All right, so here we're using Sonar Cube Scanner installation, right? That's what we're using. Okay, so click on Add Sonar Cube, right? And then you are going to give your Sonar Cube a name. Okay, so here, let's call it Sonar Scanner, right? And we're going to be installing it directly from the Maven Central. I told us already what Maven is in the last class. If you've not watched that video, I encourage you to do that, right? So Sonar Scanner is the name of the tool. That's the name we're calling it. So under the version, all right, because of what we're doing, we're going to go with version 4.7 247, this one. So let's click on that, all right? And once you're done, so this name, you're going to need to note it down, right? You're going to need to note it somewhere, all right, because we're going to use it in our Python script, all right? So sorry. The name is Sonar hyphen scanner. Okay, so that's the name, Sonar hyphen scanner. All right, and then this version 4.7, that's what you should use, right? And then you save. Okay, so that is the first step to save that. Now, a few more steps. All right, a few more steps. We have to go to system, right? The first one we did was to go to tools, where we configure the name and, all right, the version of the Sonar Cube we want to install. The next step is to click on system. So click system, right, click on that. Okay. All right. So here you would scroll down again, right, until you can find anywhere Sonar Cube is mentioned. All right. So there you go. So you have Sonar Cube servers here. So this is where you connect Jenkins with your Sonar Cube server. All right. So the first thing you have to do here is to check environmental variable, right? Because you're going to need that in your Jenkins pipeline as well. And the next thing you have to do is to click on Add SonarQube, right? Because you have SonarQube installed somewhere and you're adding that right here. So click on Add SonarQube. So here, you have to give your SonarQube a name as well. All right. So here we can call it, all right, let's just call it Sonar Server. Now, what's going to be the URL of the SonarQube server, right? What URL do you think we should use? Anybody? What URL do you think we should use? What URL? And do you think you know, it's asking us, the SonarQube server is accessible on port 9000, right? But if you look at what we have here, we don't have any port 9000 right here, okay? So what do you think we should use? Yes. All right. Shay, you're raising up your hand. All right. Your mic has been allowed, Shay. Please go ahead.
So we'll use the IP of the SonarCube server, but not the public one. So we'll use the, what's it called? Is it the local IP now, internal IP?
Private
And
IP.
so yeah, the private IP, yes. So we use the private IP of the SonarCube. Yeah, that's the server SonarCube. That's the
All right.
IP.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's very correct. So we're going to be using the private IP. So that means we have to go back to instance, right? And the reason we're using the private IP is because they're in the same VPC, right? So that's what we're using. That's what we're using the private IP. Okay. Copy that. Come here. Um, you can drop the IP and the HTTP is necessary, but for the purpose of compliance, you can just put that HTTP. Now you need to authenticate. You need to have a way to connect to your SonarQube, all right, server. So there's authentication is involved here. Okay. So how do you generate these authentication? How do you, all right, how do you do that? Right, you go to SonarQube, all right, you log in into your SonarQube account, all right. Click on this icon here, okay, and then you go to my account, all right. Click on my account, and then under the account page, you have to go to security. Oh my God. Security, and then here you have to generate the token. So what's the name of the token? You can give it any name actually. So we can call the name of the token Jenkins, and we can click on generate. So make sure you keep this token, all right? So keep it very well. So copy it, all right? Come here. Of course, you can add it here, but you can come here and say add, right? Unfortunately, the add is not also working, okay? So that means we have to exit out of this place, right? And then we have to go to credentials in Jenkins to do that. So let's go out, and I will do all of that settings later. All right. So scroll down here, then you go to credentials, click on credentials. All right. So click on system. All right. Click on global credentials. Okay. We don't even have any credentials here. Add credentials. All right. So now under this credentials, we have the kind, right? So the kind of credentials is secret text, right? Because what we generated is a token, all right? It's not the username and password thing, right? It's just a token. So it's going to be what? Secret text. So click on secret text. So the secret is what we have here. So copy that again, and you can drop that here. Right. So here I'm just going to call it Sonar hyphen token. I copy the same thing to your description, then we can create. Right. So that is how to add a token. Right. Now token has been added. So we have to go back to the system page for Jenkins to provide configure this credential so that Jenkins is able to authenticate with our Sonar Cube server. So go back to manage Jenkins. All right. So here we go back to system. Right? All right. So let's scroll down, find our SonarQube installation. So check this one. Add SonarQube server. All right. You can call it this one Sonar server. All right. The URL will be http column slash slash. All right. The private IP. Oops. Private IP of the SonarQube. Start here. The token right here. Select that. And once that is done, basically just have to say save. All right. So now the steps have been completed. So we are now ready to push, all right, our code, all right, to GitHub. And then hopefully GitHub can trigger the Jenkins pipeline. Then our job can run. But before we do that, of course, we have to create a job. All right. That's the first step. We have to create a job. So click on new item. We're going to call this Jenkins Sonar. All right. And it's going to be a pipeline job. Okay. Now, on this page, we are going to enable a few things. We're going to enable this GitHub hook trigger. we're going to select that. Remember, we already configured GitHub, all right, hook, webhook on our GitHub account. So for this particular project, we have to check these, right? So check that. Then under the pipeline configuration, you have to come here. You say pipeline is from what? Is from SCM. So select that. SCM is Git, right? So the Git repo is going to be this one. So you can grab it. You can click on code, all right? Come here and then HTTPS code, right? And then drop it here, right? So it's a public repo, so there's no need for any credential, all right? If it was a public repo, or a private repo rather, you might have to configure for that. But it's a public repo, so there's no need. So the branch, what's the name of the branch? The name of the branch is Jenkins Sona CI, right? So we have to put that here. Jenkins Sona CI, right? You can see that here, Jenkins Sona CI. Do that, and of course, the Jenkins file is right there. If you look at your repository, find that we have what? A Jenkins file present, all right? So let's save. All right. So here we have a pipeline, but of course we don't have anything yet. So now it's time to go to script and see what. So this is the Jenkins file that we're using. So I'm going to walk you through this. So the first thing we want to do here, right, is declaring the tools that we're going to be using for the job. Right? We talked about all these tools already in the last class. Okay, we talked about them in the last class already. So if you have not watched that video, please try as much as possible to do that. So we're using Maven, all right, to build our Java application. Like I said, I talked about all of that in the last class. So here, the name of the tool on our system is, this is like a variable that you're using to declare the tool you're using. So this name right here, Maven 3, must be what we have configured, all right, on our system. Another tool that we're using is JDK, which is Java, right? And then this is the name that we have used to configure this tool on our system, right? So if you come here to go back to dashboard, right, just so you can verify all of these details, all right, let's just verify those details one more time so that we're spelling them correct. So if you click on Manage Jenkins, and then if you click on Tools, oh, sorry, I wanted to click on Tools, not Settings, Tools. Let's go back to Manage Jenkins, to Tools. All right, so if you look at what we have here under JDK, the name of our JDK is Oracle JDK 11, right? So that's the name. That's exactly what we have here, right? And if you scroll down under the Maven installation, what we have here is Maven 3, right? And that's exactly what we have here. So basically, what we are telling Jenkins is these are the tools that we are using, right? These are the tools that we want to use to run our job. All right. So here, you start with your pipeline. So you open your curly brace. Agent is basically any system, right? So now we're using the Jenkins server itself to run the job. And then tools, we have Maven, we have JDK. So these are the two tools we're using. Under stages, these are the different phases of the job that you want to run. Okay. So the first stage is going to be build. We want to build application. Like I said, I told us about these things in the last class. We want to build our job. So we're using Maven to do that. When you are running Maven, it is actually MVN. That's the name to use, not Maven, not the full name. All right. So when you want to use Maven to build your job, it is MVN. Right. And these are the different goals you can use. So for example, you want to package the whole application, right? And then I showed us in the last class the documentation page, all right, where you can see all of the things you can run. So for example, if you go here and you search for Maven goals, right? So it is called Maven Build Lifecycle. Some call it Maven goals as well, right? So these are the phases. So there's validate, there's compile, there's test, there's package, there's verify, there's install, there's deploy, right? But one thing about Maven is that if you choose to say MVN package, for example, excuse me, guys. All right, sorry. So if you decide to say Maven package, all right, the way Maven works is that it starts from validate, goes to compile, and then it goes to test before it comes to package. Which means Maven is not just going to say, okay, well, you want me to package, then it just goes ahead and then does the packaging. No, it will start from the very first goal or the very first build life cycle, all right, up to that point that was specified. So which means if I say Maven install, for example, it is actually going to start from validate, it will do compile, it will do test, it will do package, it will verify, and then install. Is that all right? Now, one thing about Maven is that you can also skip any of this phase, right? If there's any phase that you don't want Maven to do at all, right? You're not interested in that phase. For example, I don't want Maven to just to run any tests, all right, on my code. I can skip that. And then, of course, once you pass the flag into your Maven configuration or your Jenkins pipeline, right, it skips that and then it goes on to the next phase. Is that okay? So that's what we have here. So here I'm doing Maven clean install. Now, you can actually combine two goals, all right, together. So clean is one goal, install is also another goal, right? Like we said, it's just build life cycle. You can combine them together, all right? And so here I'm saying I'm skipping the test phase, which means don't do any tests, right? Just go ahead and install. So what that would do is Maven is going to validate, it is going to compile, but it's not going to test. It's going to package, it's going to verify, and it's going to install. All right. But this command here, this flag right here is skip the test phase, which means don't do that. Just go ahead and skip that. All right. Now here, I'm specifying the MVN test, right? Because when your developers, all right, when they develop any application, they do what is called testing. All right. They write what is called unit test. Okay. They use some frameworks to do that. If you look at what Maven says, it says under test, it says test the compiled source code using a suitable unit testing framework. All right, and it says this test should not require the code to be packaged or deployed. So testing here is just a way for your developers to test, different functions that they have used in the code. All right, to ensure that yes, everything is working as they expect. Right, that's not our own job. Okay, just have to have an idea of what some of these things do. Okay, so the testing here is just to test, all right, the functionality of the code. Is everything working fine? This function that is used here, is everything okay? And that, right? Now we're dealing with SonarQube. Okay, so another build phase or build life cycle in Maven is what you call check style. All right. The purpose of check style is to generate some kind of report, right? So check style is to generate what? Some kind of report. So here we can do a Google search, Maven check style. All right, to get an idea of what I would do. It says the check style plugin generates a report regarding the code style used by the developers. Right? That's what check style would do. All right. So it basically just check the style of writing. So how did they write the code? Does it conform to known standards and that? Right. So that is what check style would do. All right for us. Now we're checking the style, and of course, it's going to generate a report. Now, whatever report that this check style generates, all right, we're going to add that to our SonarQube, all right, environment. We're going to add that to the SonarCube environment, and SonarCube is also going to do its own scan on our code. All right. SonarCube is going to do what? To do its own scan on our code. So this MVM check style is just to check the style that the developer has adopted. All right. If it meets certain, all right, benchmarks. All right. So if you scroll down, there's the SonarCube face. So at this stage now, we're defining what SonarCube should do. But you know what? Let us run the code up to this point, all right, before we go into the SonarCube analysis. Or you can even do all of that right at once. Yeah, sure, you go ahead.
All right, so there's a question I always want to ask. So when it comes to Maven, now, when we talk about install clean, so do we need to specify any file, or there's a default file that automatically, when you're doing a Java application, it knows, okay, fine, this is the file to look out for?
All right, good question. Yeah, please, my mic volume. I'm sorry, I have code, so you may not be able to hear me clearly. All right, so that's why my voice is a bit low. Okay, starting with code, right? Apologies about that. Okay, yeah, so that's a very good question, right? Now, when you are using Maven, there's a file that is called pom.xml. All right, pom.xml. Right now, this pom.xml. Okay, if you go to Google and search something, so let's say pom.xml, search for that. Now, it's what a project object model is the fundamental unit of work in Maven. Now, Maven uses the pom.xml to download all the dependencies that your application requires to function. All right. Maven does what? It uses that, okay, to download all of the dependencies that your application requires to function. Now, again, you do not need to know how to write XML, right? You don't need to know how to write XML, okay? Now, this pom.xml, in most cases, your developers are going to be the one to write it, all right, and then they give that to you. But you must have that understanding that Maven uses what? Pom.xml. Like I said, you don't have to know how to write XML. I've not written any XML file before. All right, I don't know, but of course, I've worked with XML. I know how to read, whatever it is that is there and all of that. Okay. Now, this inside of this pom.xml. Now, you see all of the Raymond. I'll take your question. All right. You see all of the. Let me show you this thing. Now, you see all of these check style, whatever that it is that we defined here. All right. Particularly that anything that has to do with Maven, right? You have to define them inside of the pom.xml. Okay. So if you click on the pom.xml and you scroll down, right, under dependencies, you're going to see a lot of stuff, right? Spring Framework. Now, all of these Spring Frameworks, all right, are needed to build our Java application. Okay. So all of the things that your application requires to function, all those dependencies, you define them inside of the pom.xml, right? So here you can see Spring Framework. All right, there's this one, there's Hibernate, SQL, if that is required. There's JUnit. JUnit is to test your application. That is where the testing comes in. All right, there's Mockito, whatever that is. All right, and there's one I want to show us. Where's that? All right. Now, you see all these ones, Jacoco and all the rest of them, right? This is a framework or a plugin that is used, all right, in conjunction with your SonarQube to perform the scanning of your code. Okay. And you can see that for every of the dependencies, one thing you will notice is for every of the dependencies, there's what? There's the version that you want to use. Okay. So for every of the dependencies, you have a version. So here there's version 3.2, the Jacoco there's 8.804. All right. All this Jacoco, whatever. All right. The Jacoco is also going to generate a report, all right, that will be sent to your SonarQube server. All right. You can see that the goal here says report. So it's going to generate the report. All right. And then all of that. So we don't have to talk about this. So this file is what your Maven will use. all right, to build your Java application. So all of the things that our application requires, we already have them right here. So all the Java, the Spring Framework, Java X, the JUnit, everything has been defined here. And of course, you can download all of these things if you go online and look for Maven, if you say Maven, all right, Java dependencies, right? So, okay, right? So let's see. All right, so you can see this is an example of all of that, right? It's an example of the dependency, but there's a way to that. There's a place to download the dependency. Let me just go to download. Okay, so let's click this one. This one. Okay, so let's say download Maven. See this. I have this repo. I can't remember the URL now. There's a repo where you can download all the any dependency that you need. I can't seem to get that. I know it's on the Maven here. That's where we'll see. Okay. Yeah, Raymond, you can go ahead. You can go ahead. Let me just. You can go ahead and ask your question. The mic is allowed.
So actually, just concerning the POM XML you talked about,
Yep.
um, yeah, though I understand that developers are supposed to write the POM XML, but there are times whereby the DevOps engineers also need to, like, should I say, modify in order to possibly be able to blend with the environment they are using it on. So I still believe that there should be a need for a DevOps engineer to actually know how to read and how to modify the script. From my experience, I'm actually asking from experience anyway, because there was a time I was asked to write that kind of a thing and I didn't really understand what exactly I'm supposed to do there. So I need to like consult someone else for assistance. But my question again is this: I understand that it might not be like part of the scope for this course, but I think maybe there should be a way whereby you can just like give us an hint on how exactly this POM XML should be written. The reason I'm saying this is because there are times in some organizations whereby even DevOps engineers do some of developers' job, for them. So I believe that no knowledge is a waste. If you can like show us, should I say, the scheme or steps in writing it, maybe perhaps it would be good.
All right. Yeah. So I can't really remember right now where to download, but I know I've maybe if I get it, I can share with us. Yeah, but I don't want to waste time on that. Now, so let's look at this file. Okay, the pom.xml. Right now, um, all right. So if you look at this file, this SRC, right, is the source code, right? And then is the Java application, right? And you have a lot of stuff, solar model repository, a lot of things, right? Now, if you're going to be using Maven to build this application, number one, you must know what framework was used. Now, when it comes to Java, there are different frameworks, and I think one of the popular one is the Spring framework, right? And the Spring framework is basically used to um, write, Java application that are web-based, right? If you see any web-based Java application, all right, just know that perhaps it's written using Spring, all right, a Spring framework. Okay. Now, once you have that understanding, okay, now you can have your pom.xml. Now, the pom.xml, there's what they call, I think I saw that somewhere, pom.xml. Right. Now, there's what they call the pom.xml, like, is it packaging now? Right. Now, under the packaging, you have what is called the group ID, you have the artifact ID, and you have the packaging, right? Now, this packaging is where you specify, all right, the end product that you're expecting. So, are you expecting a .war file or are you expecting a .jar file? Right? You know, they are two different things, right? Your Java application can come in two different extensions, right? There's the .jar and then there's the .war, right? Now, the .jar is usually executed on your normal computer system, especially when you're dealing with a desktop application, all right? But the .war kind of file is the one you run on a Tomcat application server, all right? That is the .war. So when you see any packaging that ends with .war, definitely tells you that, okay, perhaps they are running this application on a Tomcat server. So that tells you that this Java application is a web-based application, right? The .jar is usually executed on a desktop system. So all these desktop app that you see, all these enterprise systems that you use within your organization, all those ERP packages and the rest of them, right? They usually come in on .jar, right? But the .war is the one that it runs on Tomcat, right? Tomcat is an application web server, right? More like your Apache web server. Apache web server runs your PHP, HTML, and all of that. But when you want to run a Java-based web application, right, you use Tomcat to do that. And in some enterprise, they use JBoss, okay, to do that, all right, as well. Okay, now here, under version, you specify the application version. So this can be version 2 and all of that. And then this will be the name of the app. So by the time you build that application and then you publish it into your own repo or whatever, or even the what do you call it now? These SonarQube. All right. So here now I can change this one to Gary underscore web app, underscore web underscore app. All right. So that's going to go and that's going to be the name of this application. Okay. So here you have the repo for Maven. So now Maven is where you download all your repo, all your dependencies, right? There's the Maven repo where you there's the Maven repo they call the Maven Central Store, right? Let me even search for that. Maven, right? Central Store, right? Ah, what I'm looking for. Okay, so here you see the Central Store, all right? This is where you download all the dependencies that you need. So this is actually the URL, right? repo.one.maven.org. So if I click on that repo.one, you can see I have a lot of packages here, a lot of packages, a lot. You can't scroll, you can't even finish these things, all right? A lot of them. Okay? Now, you see here, right? For example, published packages by year. In this year alone, they've published over 1 million packages and it's still counting. And then if you look here, you have a lot of, all right, categories. There's for testing framework, there's Java, there's Android, there's core utility, there's web assets, there's HTTP, a lot of them. Okay. So here you can search, all right, what you're looking for. So here, let me just say JUnit, all right? So here you can see that I have JUnit right here. And then it has 126,000 users. So if I click on it, right, it tells me that this application has been moved to this place, all right? And so it's actually a testing framework and tool. So let's click here to find it where it has been moved. So it has been moved here. Now, if you look at what you have here, all right, this version was released May 17, 2024, right? So if you come here, here you have different stuff, central, red hat, blah, blah, blah. So let's click on this version and let's see what we'll have. Now, these things that you see here, all the things that you see here, they are what? They are all build tools, right? So we are dealing with Maven. And so if I want to use this JUnit, whatever, within my Maven, pom.xml, perhaps I have a Java application that depends on this, right? It has given me a sample code on how to do it, right? All I need to do is to what? Just copy this thing, copy it, all right, and then go to my pom.xml and then paste it there, right, under dependencies. You can see that it's under dependency, and you can see that it gave me the name, all right, and then it gave me the version, the J11M2 and the version, right? It gave me that. Now, if I'm using another build tool, for example, there's Gradle. If I click on Gradle, this is how to reference that same tool, all right, using Gradle, all right? And then if you're using any other one within your organization, you can just click on the name here, then you have it, right? So that is how to, all right, use that. Now, if you go back to this file, under the properties, all right, you have some properties defined here. These are properties that are used to build your application. So here you have the Spring version, all right, which is basically that your application was built using the Spring framework. You specify the version here. Of course, these are information you get from the developers, right? They are the one who build the application, so they should know the version of Spring, all right, framework that they have used, all right. And for the database, they have that information as well, so they should be able to give you the version, all right. And then the Maven compiler that you're using, all right, here you're using 1.8, all right. That is the one that will do the compilation of your application, all right? Now, under the dependencies, right? So that is where you now start defining all the JUnit dependency by Spring Framework. For example, if I go to that space and I type Spring Framework, right? All right, so here you have a lot of stuff. Now, what happens in a normal work environment is, you have to do a lot of testing because there are a lot of tools here. For example, there's the Spring Context, there's Spring Core, and there's Spring Web. So you have to know which one you are using. So if you look at this one now, we're using what? Spring Web. Do you see that? That's Spring Web. All right. And then there's also Spring Mints. All right. There's Spring Web MVC. If you look at here, we're using that as well, right? Spring Web MVC. Are you understanding this now? So here, if I'm using Spring Web, I can come here and click on Spring Web, right? And then whatever version that I want to use, all right. And then where do I want to download it? So I can see that in the Maven Central Store, there are about 278 versions of the Spring Web. And then there's Atlassian's third party, right, repo, where you can also download it. There's also the JBoss that I mentioned. You can also download it from there. But of course, in most cases, we use the Maven Central store, because that's where most of the plugins are uploaded. So here, in terms of vulnerability, they already have given you a heads up. All right, yeah, one vulnerability here, there's two vulnerabilities here. So that tells you that those are not versions that you want to use. Now here, the version is kind of, right, Spring Dot version. Let me see that. All right, so they are taking the version from this place, right? Spring Dot version. So they're using the 4.2.0 release. Okay, so that's why you see here they're using a variable, all right, to do that. So that means they're using 4.2. So if you scroll down, you should find the 4.2 whatever here. All right, but all that 4.2 what now? 4.2.0. 4.2 is it here? 4.1, 4.5. They're using this one, and that is has been from like 2015. That's kind of old. All right. If you want to do something, all right, you can actually upgrade it. But the thing is, if you upgrade, all right, the Java version that you're using, does it support it? Okay. So if you click on 6.18, for example, and under this one, you can see that the Spring framework, all right, the Spring Web, the version is 6.18. So if I want to update now, what that means is I have to go to my pom.xml and then I have to update the version from here. All right. You know what? Let's give that a go. All right. So 6.18, I'm just going to copy this version. 6.1.8. That's the latest version, right? Let's see if our application will work with this version. And remember, we're using Java 11, okay? And there's every possibility that this particular version, right, perhaps supports maybe a higher version of Java and all of that. You can see here, there's the pom.xml here. So if I click here, right, look at the pom.xml. So you can see that this even generated the pom.xml for me automatically, right? So if you look at the pom.xml right here, all right, so look at the model version. The version is 6.18, and then it gives me a whole lot of stuff. All right, Spring Framework 6.18, Spring Core, and okay. So this is an example of a way you can generate your pom.xml as well, right? For every framework that you want to use here, this is the pom.xml. This is the Jar version that you can click on view. Right? It gives you, all of that. Okay. So go back again. So here, like I said, let's do one thing. So let's try to use the new version, 6.1.8. But we must bear in mind that we're using Java 11. So let's hope it works. But before we change, we have to note the version we're using so that in case it doesn't work, all right, we just have to revert back. So we're using, now we're using what? 4.2.0. Okay. So what do we want to do? We want to change this to, all right, 6.1.8, right? So that's what we want to do, right? So we're changing that to 6.1.8. Okay. So that's what we're doing. So Spring Security version, so that should also be 4.18, right? So that should also be 4.18. Okay. Now that is for the Spring Web. So let's see other ones that we have on that Spring framework. So there's a Spring Web, the Spring WMVC. I think we're using that as well, right? So here, so basically they're the same version. So Spring Web MVC, if you click on this one, I think that should also be 6.18, right? So you can see that it's the same version. And good enough, it doesn't contain any vulnerability, right? And it was published just just this week, right? On the 22nd of this month, it was just published, right? This one already has 15 downloads. This one has 2 usages and all of that. So it's the same version, okay? So let's back a bit. So what other Spring framework are we using? So the security version also. So we need to search for this one as well. Spring framework.security. So let's check. We have any Spring framework.security here. So let's check. Let's look at it. Spring framework.security. Do we have anyone here? Or we can just do a search. Spring framework security. Oops, I didn't spell that correctly. Okay. All right. So Spring framework. Okay. This is the security core. Is that what we're using? Spring security dot version. Is that the one we're using? I'm not sure. But let's copy this name, right? So that we're sure we're using the correct stuff. Let's copy this name. Let's paste it here. All right, let's do a search. The Spring Security Web Framework. So that was updated 20th of May. So let's click that. All right. So let me click on this one. All right. The Spring Security Framework. All right. So the version is different, right? The version for that one is now 4.02. Oh, okay. This is 4.02. So the Spring framework we used before was 6.4.20, all right? So this one is 6.30, all right? So you can see the ID right here, org Spring framework the security, right? So let's see, is that the same thing? So that, yeah, org Spring framework the security, all right. So the version is what? So we can come here now and change that. 6.3.0, right? So let's just note the version we have before. The version we have before is 4.0.2. All right, I'm noting that down. And the new one we're using now is 6.3, 6.3.0. Okay, so that's the version. So let's scroll down again. What other thing do we have there? All right, okay, all right. So we have the Hibernate validator. There's the Spring Framework data JPA as well. Let's look at that. Spring data JPA. So let's just do this one. All right, let's do this one and then we'll just leave the other ones as is. Is that all right? So, what's the correct name now? So the correct name is this. So let's copy that, all right? And let's search for that. All right. So that one too was updated on the 17th of May. So let's click that. So the latest version for that one is 3.30. So let's click on it. And then we can see the reference right here. So Spring Data JPU. All right, Spring Data JPU. All right, and that's exactly what we have. So let's change the version as well. So the previous version we have there is 1.8.2. All right. So let's change it to 3.3.0. That's the new version. All right, 3.3.0. Okay, 3.3.0. All right. So that's the new version we have, and I don't think it contains any vulnerability, right? Is there any vulnerability? Let's check. But here it doesn't show that it has any vulnerability. That's fine. Okay. So we have changed all of the versions. But like I said, this version thing depends on the Java version that you're using as well, right? If you're using the Java version that is high, all right, some of these things may not work depending on Java version. But let's give it a try, right? There's no harm in trying. So if you scroll down, there are a lot of dependencies as well, which we may not be able to go through. All right, there's the JUnit as well. Let me even search for JUnit. Let's see the version. Let's try to see we can do something on that one. JUnit. All right, so it has been moved. Okay, it's been moved to this one. So we have the 5.1, but the reference has changed, right? So the reference there is only referencing JUnit, but definitely this one has changed, right? So it's no longer, we can see that the scope here says test, right? So the version that we're using has changed. So which means if you want to use this new version, you have to edit whatever it is that you have right here. So let's give that a try as well. All right, let's give that a try. So I can copy, um, right? Let me just copy from here. Right, the group ID. So let's say space that. Actified ID, JUnit Jupyter API. Right, copy that. The version, right? We're gonna have to copy this. We're not hard coding now. We're gonna be hard coding the value, right? So let's just put that here. Right, copy that. So the scope is the same thing here. The scope is test, so we leave that as is, right? So I think that's okay. Any other thing? There's any other one? Right, we can just leave every other thing here. So the text style should also be somewhere here. And you can also see that the WA plugin also, you can see the version we're using. So for the WA plugin, because you also need a plugin to package your artifacts, all right, using the WA plugin. So let me see. I think there's an error somewhere. Okay. Telling us some things are missing. Okay, that's fine. Let's just leave all of this thing can be right. So if you look at these the WA plugin, all right, you can also search for that. Right, the version we're using is 3.22. So you can also come here and search for that as well. All right, and then we can see it here. So that was updated last 2023, June 15th. So we can click on it. All right, Central Store. So the latest version. So the one we're using is 3.3, 3 point what? 3.22. So that one is 3.22 should be right. You can see that 2018. Wow, that's kind of. So let's try the latest version. But the latest version contains some vulnerabilities, right? Let's just let's use that. So 3.4.0. So all I need to do is just to come here and change the value. So what we have there before is 3.2.2, right? So let's just go ahead and then 3.4.0. Okay. So that's the latest version that we have. So I think we've done enough here. All right. Let me just cancel all of this. So we've done enough here. So now we can save this and then push, all right, to our repository. So we've updated a few of the dependency. We've updated a few of the dependency. So let's try to push this. Let's see what we have, right? So let's give this a try and let's see what happens. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to connect to my. But any questions so far? Let's take a few questions. Any question? Does anybody have any question? Okay. All right. So let me just a minute. Let me get my Git credentials. What's the name of this? If you have a question, you can ask while I try to bring up my. Yeah, Lakon, please go ahead.
And, oh no, please. I don't know. I don't need a rundown of what we are doing because I'm lost. Maybe just quick rundown. I
Ooh, see.
there was a
Yeah. All right.
just a rundown.
So yeah, it's all right. It's okay. That's not a problem. Yeah. So Raymond was asking, was it Raymond that asked the question? I think it was somebody that I'm not sure now, but somebody asked the question that, what does Maven use, right, to build its application? So I was trying to explain that Maven uses the pom.xml, all right, and then Raymond was of the opinion that we try to, just edit the pom.xml because he has been in that situation before, all right, and he feels it's going to be a good idea for us to, all right, edit the pom.xml. Okay. So the pom.xml is the file that your Maven uses to build your application, right? The last class we talked about the fact that Maven is used to build our Java applications, right? Now there are different build tools out there, right? If you're dealing with a Python application, for example, the Python application uses PIP, all right, to do its own building, all right? And then for Windows application, there's also a build tool for that. For Java application, all right, there's Gradle, there's Maven, there's Ant as well. But the most popular of them is Maven, okay? And so for Maven to do that build successfully, it relies on what is called the pom.xml, right? Now, the pom.xml is where you define all of the dependencies that your application requires to function. Okay. So it is in that file that you determine all of that. And so all of the dependencies is what you can now get from this Maven Central Store. Okay. It is called Maven Central Store. So any dependency you're looking for, if you know the name, you can actually come here and then type the name of that dependency, and then it will give you different suggestions, right? Like we did with Spring Framework, Apache, WAR, all of that. So it will give you all of the dependencies and how to use it. So this is how to use it, for example. So all I need to do is if I don't have this already in my own pom.xml, all I need to do is to grab this and then paste it into my pom.xml file. All right. So that's exactly what we been doing. So we're just editing a few things, all right, in this file. Is that okay? All right. So
Yeah,
let's do some.
thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's me configure my repo. Right. So here, okay. So now we can do git add, right? Git commit, all right? Pom.xml dated. Okay. Then can do git push. There's something we did not do. That pipeline is going to fail. That's fine. Let's look at it. And let's even check if there was any trigger. Let's check if there was any, if the pipeline was actually triggered. Let's check that out. You can also check that from the repo. Go to settings, All right, you can go to webhooks. All right, you can see that the pipeline was actually triggered. So it's triggered. So let's see. But of course, the pipeline is going to fail because there are certain parameters that we're yet to set. So it's going to fail. So that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Right. So let's see. Let's just look at, let's take a look. Let's see what Jenkins will do it to a point, but when it gets to the SonarQube part, right, the pipeline is going to fail at that part because we've not actually configured our SonarQube server. All of the details are not there yet. All right. So when it gets to that part, it's actually going to fail. So let's take a look at what has been built. From what we see here, we can see that our pipeline was triggered. So that means the Jenkins job should have been built by now, and then we should have a report. I don't know why this is slow. I really don't understand. So you can see that it failed, right? It actually failed. So let's take a look at what happened. So let's look at the pipeline. So let's see where the failure happened. But I'm pretty sure it was at the SonarQube face. Okay, but if it's not there, but let's see. Maybe the pom.xml face. Let's just take a look at what happens. Let's see. All right. This is the build ID. So let's click on this build ID. Hmm. So let's check the console output. That's where you can see what actually went wrong. Okay, the build took 20 seconds and then it failed. So let's see what went wrong. It did fail. I don't know what's going on with this region. I don't know why it's this slow. Internet is fine, but it's wrong with anyway, isn't Ireland, right? Why is this slow? This other website are moving very fast. Just the okay, so let's see. Okay. So if you look at this, right? So the job started actually, right? And you can see that it's downloading from the repo Maven central store, right? So the job started, right? Diary app, that's the name we gave to it. Okay, and then the WAV file, right? It was also able to download all of it. So let's scroll down, let's see at what point the failure occurred. All right, so you can see here it's downloading what? Downloaded from Central. It's downloading all those plugins that we specified, right? Downloading them from Central repo, right? From the Central Maven store. Okay, so that's where it's downloading them from. So let's scroll down. Right. So at this point, everything was still going on. Right? Everything was going on. Okay, everything was going on. Okay, so the failure occurred. All right, the failure occurred at this point. Here it says build failure. All right, it says what? It says build failure. And so if you look at it, it says failure to execute goal on project. All right, we profile could not restore dependency for project. All right, so can you see? Failed to collect dependencies at, all right, the Spring Framework 6.18. Failed to read alpha descriptor. All right, failed to, calling alpha could not be resolved. All right, absent, could not transfer, blah, blah, blah. All right, so can you see that? So the failure occurred, okay, because of these dependency. So we used 6.18 all right, 1.8, right? That was what we used. So, and it could not find that or something, right? And then the failure happened. So now, what I want us to do is, we're learning, right? Now, for the Spring version, all right, we're not going to use any variable, okay? So we're going to use this 6.18 as is right here, okay? So here, not using any variable, we're just going to say 6.1.8, okay? And for the security also, security version is 6.3.0. We're going to do the same thing, right? So this one is also 6.1.8, okay? So let's not use any variable, 6.1.8. So let's just try that one more time. For the security one, that is 6.3.0. 6.3.0. And for the security, this one is still referencing the security. So that would be 6.3.0. And there was one other one that we did, right? And that one is the JPA 3.30. Okay. All right. So let's change this one also. 3.3.0. Okay. I think that was the only thing that we did. All right. Other things we had to add them manually. All right. So all those ones were added manually. Right. That's the only thing that we did right there, right? And this last part, right? This one here, these repositories, it's not needed actually, right? So I can actually remove it. Okay, we can remove that. It's not needed. Okay, it's not necessary. Let's remove that. Okay, so that's not necessary. So let's commit again. So of course we expect the pipeline to get triggered again. So let's see. Right, the pipeline will be triggered again. So let's see what happens this time around. Oh my God, I forgot again the SonarQube thing. I should have commented the code out, but let's just think so fine. Okay, so let's see. All right, bid number 2 is starting up. You can see. Okay, so wow, that failed. Let's click on it. Let's see what is causing the failure. All right, this thing is slowing us down. Okay, so if you scroll down from here, everything was working fine. It was downloading from the central store. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so you can see here, there's a compilation error, right? Compilation error at that point. So, okay, so let's scroll down. Right, was the build successful? Let's find out. All right, so you can see that all the other stages were skipped due to earlier failure, right? So the whole thing failed. All right, cannot find symbol, cannot find request method. All right, so you can see all the things that it's saying. Location class, blah, blah, blah. Can't find anything like that. Right, why do you think this is happening? Right, because the Java version we are using is not the updated. We're using Java 11, right? And all the dependencies that we're using, they do not match the version of the Java that we're using. Okay, so that's why you're seeing all of these errors. Okay, so that means before you go ahead and use any dependency, you must find out, all right, the version of Java that it supports. So if your developers are developing with Java 11, your dependencies must also be dependencies that are compatible, all right, with Java 11. Do you get that? So if you're using Java 11 and then you're using a dependency that is compatible with Java 20, of course, it's going to fail, all right? And that's why you can see all this class model, whatever it is that you're seeing here, is basically telling you that the version of Java you are using does not support the dependencies that you're using, all right? And that's why you're seeing a lot of errors, right? Cannot access the framework, all right? All those things are code, right? So the dependency we're using are more updated, but Java 11 is about to be deprecated, all right? And unfortunately, that's the code we're using was written using Java 11 or Java 8. That means our dependency must also be compatible, all right, with that version, all right, of Java. Is that okay? So that's why we're getting all of these errors, all right? All of these errors. You see bad class file, right? Because the framework that you're trying to use is not compatible with the version of the Java, all right, that you are using. So that's why we are getting, all of these errors that we see right here. Okay. Now, I don't want to take our time, all right? What I would have suggested was to, install an higher version, all right, of Java and then run it again, right? But that will take our time, okay? So, but you can try that on your own, right? Install it, maybe Java 17 or something, okay? And then try this thing again and see if it works. Is that all right? So let us just, revert back to, what we had earlier, right? But Raymond, I believe you've been able to understand a few things, all right, as regards how to edit your pom.xml file and all of that. Is that okay? All right, so let's revert back to what we had earlier, all right? So earlier we had 4.20 right here. So let's just change these values back, right? All right, so let's change those values. Right, so here we had what? 4.2.0. So let's do that. 2.0. And then this one is 4.0.2. And the last one is 1.8.2, right? So let's try to do it as well. 8.2. Okay. And then also we edited a few things. All right. We edited a few things. So for the J unit is actually uh, okay. So let me go back. I think it was this commit that we edited all of that. So yeah, so this is what I'm looking for. So here we change this one. So let's copy it back. Same version. So this one here, 6.18. So return back to this. This one should also go back. This 6.30. Or I should go back to this one. I believe you understand what I'm doing. Copy that and then replace it back. So we're just replacing the values, right? Trying to revert back to what was there originally. Okay. And this one, three, scrap this, right? Scrap that. Okay, so all right, so let's grab that. What other thing did we change? I think we changed the J units, right? So let's go and correct that as well. I'm going to look at the other comments. That's where we can find that change. This one. Yeah, so right here. So the name is JUnit. right? So the name is just JUnit. The active part ID is just JUnit as well. The version is this one. Okay, so let's copy that. All right. So now, what I want us to just do here is these, where is it now? This wa, all right, that we updated. I want us to leave that. I want us, this one, it was 3.22 right before. So I want us to leave this one and see if it is going to work, right? So let's leave this 3.40 and let's see if that would work, right? But before we go ahead, I want to edit my file here. So let's comment this part out, all right? So from this point, all right, let's comment it out, okay? Let's just run the, okay? So let's comment that part, all right? Let's comment it out up to this point. So the only thing we are running now is just the Maven, right? The Maven goals. All right, those are the ones we want to run. Is that okay? So let's commit it again to the record. Right, so let's commit it again. Is that okay? So let's do that. Right, so let's check my Jenkins job. Let's see if it's going to be, if it's going to pass this time around. Okay, so job 3 seems to be going. Now you can see that the job seems to be going on now, all right, for the third one. So we're not seeing any error just yet. So let's pray that everything is fine. So let's see. It's still rolling. So rolling means it's still building, it's still building, it's still building, and hopefully it's just complete. Okay. All right. So that's a green check mark right there. All right. So I don't know why it's not showing us the bars, right? We should actually see the stages right here. I really don't know why it's not showing us that. You should actually see the stages, right on the screen. Okay. I don't know why it's not showing us because it's even too slow for my liking anyway. But I don't know why it's not showing us. All right. I don't know why it's not showing us the bars. I really don't know. But then you can see the green check mark. So that means it was successful. Let's take a look at the outputs and let's see, all right, what happened. So you can see now that, the version of, that's why, when you're developing an application, you don't just use any arbitrary version, right? The version of, the programming language, the version you use will also determine the dependencies that you're going to use, all right? So that's one thing that we have learned now, right? The version of the programming language you're using is what determines the dependencies that you will use. And what happens in a real world environment is you have to do a lot of testing with your developers to find the dependency that would deliver what you want. Because every dependency will contain some vulnerabilities. So you have to look for a dependency that would not, all right, expose or allow your application to be exploited. Is that okay? So you must take note of that. So you can see that the job took 45 seconds and then it completed successfully. So let's look at the console output. Okay. So if you look at the console output, let's even see the full log. Yeah, Olatubosun, yeah, that's very true, right? The programming language, for example, if you're using Java 8 or Java 20, right? You cannot go and use a dependency for Java 11. It's not going to work. Okay. So the language version that you have chosen to use, you have to find dependencies that are also all right with that same version. So it has to match. All right. And of course, there are a lot of dependencies, so you have to do a lot of testing to find out, which one to use. So if you look at it now, everything was fine. So it scanned the image, downloaded all the dependencies, right? You can see that all the dependencies were downloaded from that Maven central repository, all right? And if you scroll all the way down, you will see that at some point, it gave us messages, right? So let's see. All right, so here it was scanning for the project, and then we can see that it's scanning from the project, and then it's using what? From the pom.xml. So that's where it's getting all the information to build the application from, right? All that information is coming from, all right, the pom.xml, right? So the pom.xml can be like the brain of your Maven tool, right? That's where it gets all the information from, all right? And so now what that also tells you that the WA, we changed the version of the WA, right, to 3.40. So that means the packaging now does not really have anything to do with the Java version. Because if the packaging has anything to do with the Java version, then that should have failed as well, right? That should have failed. So if you look at it now, let's look at so this is where it was doing some testing and all of that. So let's take a look at where the packaging actually happened, right? We're going to see that also. So let's take a look. Let me scroll down. So let's see the packaging. Of course, it told us here that build was successful. Then it generated the result. That is the check style, whatever. So the result was generated. I want to see where we use the version 3.40. Let me see. Where can we find downloading from maybe text style. So you can see that it downloaded from the central repo for the text style, and it downloaded the latest version 9.3. Okay. I'm looking for the WA, the 3.40, the WL that we specified. I want us to see. Fortunately, there's no way to search. All right, you just have to scroll and scroll and scroll. There's no way to search, but I hope we could find where that is. Fortunately, we cannot search. We can search for that here. I'm sure it's somewhere.
Hello, Sean.
Yeah.
So the one is that the executable?
Yes.
Okay.
We
If we
we
go to
changed it.
the
Okay.
okay,
Yeah. Please go ahead.
uh, if we go to the work, is it workspace or work folder? I think there's a list of download or something that normally.
Yeah, it's going to be there, but I'm trying to see if in the repo. I want to see where it downloaded it. All right. All this
Oh, okay.
download link. Yeah, that's what I'm
All right.
saying.
Okay.
That if maybe we'll see. We'll see it here where it downloaded the WA whatever, the WA dependency, right? That's what I'm trying to look for. But I'm sure it's going to be somewhere here. But it's just that we can't start searching all of that. Okay. But of course, if you go back to your build job and you go to workspaces, you will see your artifacts right there, right? It will be there. So the pipeline has been built successfully. So the next thing we want to do quickly now is to now scan our code, right? So the first thing we have done is we have built it, right? I don't know why it's not showing the bars. There's a bar here that should show up. I don't really know why it's not showing that. So if you click on this build job, right? If you click on the build job, uh, on that build job, there's workspaces, right? So let's take a look at that. Okay, so if you come here, scroll down, there's workspaces. If you click on that workspaces, you will see your artifact, right? It's called artifact, the executable, right? You see the artifact right there. Yeah, Olufunshop, please go ahead. If you click here, you see the artifact right here. Olufunshop, please, you can go ahead if you can hear me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead. I can hear you.
Yeah, I said for the bar to show, sometimes when you start the Jenkins, the stage pipeline view might not download, so you might have to go to the plugin to download it. It happened to me when I was working on one of the projects.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you for
Yes.
that heads up.
Uh,
Thank you for that. So here, if you click on the target file, that's where you have your executable. All right. All right. So here you see your executable right here. All right. And then you can also see the check star result. All right. You can see the check star result right here. You can see the Jacoco, whatever. And then you can see some reports here. All right. The show file reports. We're going to need all of this. Okay. Now let's go back to our code and let's do the Sonar Cube. All right. Stuff. All right. So that'll be the last thing we're going to do. So scroll down. Let's uncomment all of this. So here, I'm still going to comment this one, the quality gate. Okay. And comment that. All right. So here, you have the Sonar Cube face, the code analysis face, and the environment, you have the scanner home tool. So the name of the tool, remember, we gave the tool a name, and the name of the tool, the name we gave the tool is Sonar Scanner. Do you remember that? Sonar Scanner. So we have to put that name right here. Now, here we have Sonar Cube ENV. Remember, when we go to the system configuration, we enabled the environmental variable for Sonar Cube. Is that right? So here, that name that we gave it there, we have to put it here. All right, and the name we gave it was Sonar hyphen server, right? That's the name we gave to it. Okay. So now it is going to use all of this information, right? All this information that you see here can actually be gotten from the Sonanki web page, but time is fast spent. But let me just explain what you have here to you. Now, SH means shell. Okay, that's what it means, which means we're executing all of these things on our server. All right, we're executing it on the Jenkins server. So this is a variable which is scanner home. All right. So basically, we're saying we're using this tool. All right. Sonar scanner. That's what we're using. And the project key. Remember, here, we've not done anything, right? If on that project, we don't have any project created here. So what we are trying to do with the script is we're trying to create that project from Jenkins. Instead of us going to the Sonarkey web servers and then start creating the project and all of that, we want to do that right from this place. All right. That's exactly what we want to do. So the project name, you can call this, all right, diary underscore web underscore app. All right, that's the key name. And then here also we can use the same thing as well. So I can just copy this, all right, and then I can paste that right here. So all these things will be executed on the Jenkins server. Now here, the project version, you can do that any version you want, but these sources. So here you're telling SonarCube to search or to scan, all right, this SRC folder, which means everything inside of this SRC, SonarCube is going to scan it for you and then give you, all right, the report. Okay. Now, all the Java binaries, right? This is the path. So inside of our tag, remember, we have built this application already. The only thing is that we've not, all right, published it into our production environment. That's the only thing. So the application that we have built, we're also going to give SonarCube the path to the application that we have built as well. So inside of your target folder, all right, there's this part called test classes, virtual paths. I think I showed us that right now. So let's see. All right, so yeah, all right, target, test classes, come, virtual path accounts. So that's exactly what we are giving SonarCube right here. And then the report part is also this surefire reports, which is this one right here. Can you see that? So, and then the report part also, there's this Jacoco exec, this one, all right? So we're also passing that into SonarCube. And then the check star report, the part, all right, this is what we're checking, check star hyphen result of XML, we're also giving SonarCube that path as well. So SonarCube is going to look at all of this path, all right, scan our source code, and then give us, all right, a report, all right, the number of bugs, the number of code smells, all right, if there's any line you have, anything that should not be there, all right, you get all of that report, okay? And so once you're done, you close it with three, all right, what do you call it now? All right, you close it with three, is this inverted comma, what do you call it? Okay, so you close it with that. So this is basically a shell script. So once you're done, all right, you can then push to your repo and then you can run your application. Okay. Now the quality gate is basically a way to set up what you call, all right, benchmarks. right? And it is used in organizations, all right? It's used to set benchmark. So if we have 10 bugs in our application, then the pipeline should fail, right? So basically, the purpose of the quality gate is to set benchmarks. All right, but before we do quality gates, let's go ahead and push this and see, all right, the report in SonarQube and see how it looks like, all right, before we go ahead, right? So we are pushing now. The job should have been triggered. So let's wait and see, all right, what happens. All right, so you can see that the job is building. All right, if everything is fine and our SonarQube is configured correctly, we shouldn't have, all right, any errors at all. Okay, so let's wait and see. All right, so that failed. So let's verify. Let's see what happened. Okay, we can see that we didn't see anything here, right? So let's check the logs and let's see what went wrong. Okay, so let's look at the console output. Okay, let's scroll all the way down. Okay, so you can see that it actually downloaded the Sonar scanner, the version that we specified. Can you see that? So that was downloaded, but then there was an error. Okay, it's saying the one we defined does not match any kind of installation. Sonar-server. So let's check our, all right, configuration and see if that was the name that we gave to it. Okay, perhaps the name changed and we didn't know. Let's check the configuration. So it's telling us that there's no Sonar-server anywhere. Okay, so let's check the system configuration and let's find out. Manage Jenkins. All right, so let's click on system. Okay, so let's scroll down. Let's find out the name. Oh, you can see that. So the name is actually Sonar Server. There's no hyphen, right? There's no hyphen. So we have to change that. That's where the error came from. So change that, Sonar Server. So, all right, so let's add it again. Let's commit. Sonar, right? So let's push. So now let's see. The job should be triggered as well. Okay. All right. So let's wait and see what happens with this one. Okay. So that's still building. All right. So you can see this little icon right here. All right. Can you see that icon? Analyzed by what? You can see that. Analyzed by SonarQube, right? So that tells you that there was some kind of, all right, integration right there. So if you come to your project, all right, and then you refresh your project page, all right, do you see that? So look at all the information that they give to you. So the code has 82 bugs. There are three vulnerabilities in the code. There are 845 code smells, 7.9% of duplications, and then 3.3K of whatever this is. Okay. Now, this report, all right, you have to share that with your developers, right, so that they can see, all right, the errors that you have. So if you click on it, all right, you can see that it tells you all the conditions have passed, okay, and you can see all of the code smells, right? So if you click on the box, 82 box, the interesting thing about SonarQube is that it actually gives you the path where the error is. If you look at this place now, it's giving us the full path where that error is coming from. So the error is coming from this account folder, controller, Elasticsearch, controller.java. That's where the smell is coming from. And then it says either interrupt this method or we throw the interrupt, right? So it's even giving us some suggestion as to what needs to be done, all right? And then it's giving you the path where you have all of the errors, okay? So that's one thing about SonarQube. So you know exactly where the issue is coming from, and then that makes it easy for you to work on, all right? It makes it easy for you to work on. So here we have the vulnerabilities as well. So there are three vulnerabilities, and it tells us use a logger to log this exception. So it's not just going to tell you there's error, right? It's actually going to tell you what you should do, all right, to solve that problem, and then it shows you the path where the error, all right, is coming from. So that's one beautiful thing about SonarQube. And then code smells, all right, it's telling you here missing package info Java file, line trailing spaces. All right, this is check style, right? Issue detected by an external rule engine, check style. So this one, all these ones were not cached, all right, by SonarQube. So this code smell is like you didn't follow the style you're supposed to follow, all right? And so SonarQube is saying that, well, I'm not the one who detected this one. It was detected by something external, and then it gives you what detected it. You can see that that information is kind of comprehensive. So which means all of the things that Checkstyle did, it also imported that into SonarQube, right? So which means what SonarQube did was to check for vulnerabilities, all right, vulnerabilities, bugs, all right. Code smell is actually from Checkstyle, all right. Trailing spaces, file contains tab characters, missing Java.comment, missing Java.comment, all right. So all of this style of writing, where you should comment, you're not commenting, where you should, you not use tab, use tab, activos, hide the field. So all of this information are things that you relay back, all right, to your developers, and then they have to now work on, all right, all of these things, and then they commit their code again, and then you work with them, all right, to scan it again and see if everything is now fine. Now, the last one we want to look at before we leave is the quality gate. So the quality gate is just a way, as an organization, a way you can set up a benchmark to say if the box, for example, the number of bugs we have now is 82, right? Now, in our organization, we can say, well, the number of bugs we want to have in our code, we don't want more than 5 bugs. So if any code is being scanned and then we have more than 5 bugs, then that code should not pass. Okay. So we can set, such standards. So here, if you click on quality gates, right, you have a default one, but you can create your own. So click on create, and then let's just call these all right, let's just use QG, right? Quality gate. Okay, so save that. Now, here, you can click on hard condition. So click on hard condition, and then you're going to see on overall code, right? Not on a new code, but on all the codes, right? Overall code. So the metric you want to search for is, let's just use box, right? There are a lot of metrics here. There's complexity. Under complexity, you have all of this. There's coverage, there's duplication, there's issues, there's maintainability, there's reliability, which is bugs and all of that. So let's just go with box, okay? And then bugs we say is greater than. So what you have is greater than. So if the bug in our code is greater than, let's say 10, all right, we had a condition, which means if the bug is greater than 10, all right, then the code is going to fail, right? It's not going to pass, okay? So that's what we want to do. Now, in order for this quality gate to work, we have to go back to our project. All right. On the project tab, all right, you can come here. Hold on. All right, click on the project name. So this is a project name. Click on that. Now, on the project name, you are going to come to project settings. All right, and then you click on quality gate. So click on quality gate and then select the new quality gate that you've created. So select that, and that's what you have to do. Now, one more thing, go back to project settings, and then you have to configure webhook, because webhook is needed so that Jenkins knows how to, all right, wait on SonarQube. Because what will happen is SonarQube is going to scan your code, and then based on the quality gate that you've set, SonarQube is going to have to give Jenkins a feedback whether it passed or it failed, right? So if it passed, it will give Jenkins a feedback. If it fails, it also gives Jenkins what? A feedback. So that is the importance of the webhook right here. So let's click on create a webhook. So the name of the webhook, of course, it can be any name. So we can call it, all right, Dari, all right, Sona. So the URL, which is the URL of your Jenkins server. All right. So we're going to use the private IP. So let's go to the EC2 instance, Jenkins, grab the private IP, all right, and then drop that here. And then, of course, the port is 8080, all right, slash. All right, the same thing you did with GitHub, right? SonarCube hyphen webhook. Okay, so that's what you have to do. So there's no need to put any secret. Okay, so just the IP address, SonarCube hyphen webhook. So create that. Okay, and that's fine. So now, if you go back to your code, all right, you can enable that section. So here, we're going to enable it. So we're making it a new stage. All right, so it's going to wait for maximum of like 10 minutes. All right, so wait for quality gate, and it says abort pipeline is what is true, which means if quality gate does not pass, abort the pipeline. If quality gate passes, then the job can what? Can continue. But if the quality gate does not pass, then the pipeline should, all right, be aborted. Is that okay? So let's commit this back. All right, so we can say, we can commit here and say quality gate added. Okay, so let's wait and see our pipeline build now. So now quality gate has been added. So the condition is what? Is 10, right? So, and of course our code contains 82 bucks. So of course, the pipeline is going to fail, right? You already know that. But let's just see what happens. And you're also going to see that result on your you're going to see that result on your dashboard, on your SonarQube dashboard as well, that the pipeline failed or the job failed. You're going to see it in Jenkins. You're going to see it also, all right, on SonarQube as well. So let's wait and see what happens. All right, so it failed. All right, we don't even have to look at the logs, right? We can actually just go to project here and then see that. It says what? Failed. So if you click here, it's going to tell you what? One condition failed. And it says bug is greater than what? Is greater than 10. So automatically, all right, it failed, right? So that is the way to use quality gates. Okay. So in your organization, your own metric can be anything. Your own metric can be, whatever, right? You can see all of the conditions. So whatever it is you want to use in your organization, just go there, set it up, create a webhook, and then run your job. All right. Okay, guys. So let's give room for questions, contributions. So that is that on Jenkins. And like I promised, in the next class, we're going to discuss Docker. All right, before we go into the Github actions, all right, proper. Is that okay? So, any questions before we take leave? Any questions? Any questions? I hope you've been able to learn something valuable in today's class. All right, I hope you've learned a few things that is useful. Okay, so let's take a few questions before we go. Yeah, Obi, please go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Sean. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so quick one, sir. I think I'm beginning to understand Jenkins now, how it works. So from what you've been doing so far, I come to a realization that the Jenkins package or application can actually be used with any other packages like it can be used with Docker, it can be used with Kubernetes, it can be used with so many other applications to work. So that I just found that now because as you were teaching me, I was also um noting down some words and also checking them on Google, and it's giving me like an heads up. So thank you. I will continue after the class to further study more.
All right, you're welcome, sir. Yeah, Mr. Lincoln, let's hear what you have for us. All right, Lincoln, can you hear me? All right, Shay, please go ahead if you can hear me.
Okay, so once Jenkins is done building this file, so what happened next? So for instance, let's say maybe I have a web server. So what do I do next? Is it copy the WAV file to what's it called to the web server, or what happened?
Yeah, you can use Jenkins to deploy the same way we use Jenkins to deploy our shell script, right, to our EC2 instance. You can use Jenkins to do that same deployment. What we have done is what you call continuous integration, right? There's continuous deployment. So the deployment part is now when Jenkins pushes that code, all right, into your deployment server, right? So, but what we have done now is what is called continuous integration. So we've integrated Jenkins
Okay,
with
okay,
SonarQube,
all
all
right.
right? So deployment part is now when you now set up an EC2 instance and then Jenkins deploys that code to your EC2 instance. So that's the deployment part, all right? So Jenkins can do that for you as well, okay? All right. So, Olatubosun, please go ahead.
Okay, good evening. Sure. So my question would be that how were you able to? I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, very clearly. Go ahead.
All right. So how were you able to set up your Sonar queue? Because during the class, I've gone back to your repo and I saw the updated shell scripts, which I've
Mm.
used several times, and I think about two, three times now while the class was going on. And then I kept stopping at, it kept stopping me at where now? I think Nginx common deployment or something. So like three times I've tried to deploy it and then use the shell script. I keep getting back error, and at a point I get connection error timeout or something.
All right. So I will advise you use, all right, use the updated script that is there, but then what instance type are you using?
T2 micro.
All right. So if you look at what I'm using a T3 medium, right? So you may have to go outside of the feet here, all right, to try that. So you may want to use something above T2 micro. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll give that a shot at that.
Okay. All right. All right. Do we have any other question before we take our leave? Um. Uh. What's her name now? Is still here? Yeah, Raliat, you can stop the recording, please. All right. Any other question before we go? All right. Thank you so much, guys. All right. I hope you learned something valuable. All right. So we'll see you next week, Sunday, and then we'll take a look at Docker before we go into Github.